It's Thursday, 19th of August, 2021. In today's show, we discuss Tuesday night's 1-0 defeat against Coventry as the Pool record back-to-back home championship defeats. And we also look ahead to this weekend's trip to the South Coast as we take on the high-flying Bournemouth in what promises to be an extremely tough test against the Cherries. I'm John Esmeralda, this is Seasiders Podcast match preview, Coventry and Bournemouth. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Welcome back to the Seasiders Podcast. Welcome everyone on the stream and on the audio pod, etc. Welcome Sean, welcome Connor, and we also have a special guest all the way down from the South Coast this evening. But actually, John, I've just remembered you're in Manchester, aren't you? Welcome, John Spark from the Cherries Red Army Bournemouth channel. Welcome. Not too far away then.
No, I'm looking forward to the away game where it will be a much easier trip for me. In that one.
When do we play each other out of interest? When do we play at Bloomfield Road?
That's going to need a Google search from me. I do not have that in my memory banks.
Well, we've got a couple. We do have a couple of statos on our panel, so I'm counting on one of them to do the honours there.
I was going to say, I'll let Connor type. I'll sip my beer.
12th of February. Be a nice little Valentine's Day meetup.
Is it really?
Yeah, a couple of days before Valentine's.
Freezing cold on is it a Tuesday night, I guess? Tuesday night in Blackpool. What more could a woman want?
That is a Saturday, thankfully. But
right, that'll be okay. So you'll be able to get to that then, won't you?
Yeah.
Right, welcome, Connor. It's good to have you back on. In fact, Connor, you're in Manchester as well, aren't you?
I am, yeah. Manchester Massive.
Manchester, Manchester friends. Manchester friends. I think you two probably need to get a Manc twang then going on. Connor, you sound quite well spoken, considering you're a Blackpool fan.
Well, I think we're all fairly well-spoken individuals. You go up to the North Stand and it's like being in the university lecture theatre a lot of the time. You're just trying to keep up.
Sean's laughing there, but we won't go on. We won't go on about that, will we?
Definitely not.
Right, as we said on the intro, this is a Bournemouth v Blackpool preview show. So John has taken time out to join us and tell us all about Bournemouth. But before you do, John, just tell us a bit about yourself, how you became a Bournemouth fan, and your involvement with the Cherries Red Army channel.
Well, I mean, as much as I've been living in Manchester for the last sort of 4 or 5 years, I was brought up in Bournemouth, in Ferndown, more specifically, sort of a village, or the Eastbourne of Bournemouth, I would say, Ferndown, with the amount of old people there, but in the middle of nowhere. But it took me a while to really get associated with Bournemouth. I was sort of a casual football fan, really, until about 2008, 2009, where Bournemouth were on the verge of pretty much going out of existence when we started the season on minus 17 in League Two, in 91st position in the football pyramid. And the January of that season, a legend was born when Eddie Howe took over, and sort of started following the team a little bit more while I was still in school, still in sixth form. And when we stayed up, got promoted the next season, everything was more exciting, and I kind of missed, thankfully, the worst parts of Bournemouth's history, and was just stuck in an upward trend since then, from the ridiculous high flying that we went through since then. But involved with Cherries Red Army. It's only really started up in the last few months, because there's a sort of a main Bournemouth fan channel called Back of the Net that's got over 3,000 subscribers. But there was a lot of more fan interaction over the pandemic, and there was a lot of free for alls that we called them, sort of phone in type things on StreamYard. And one of the regular contributors is Kirk Tovey, who decided that he was going to sort of start up something else as a side thing, sort of an extra view of things. And I'd only recently started showing my face on the channel, and he liked what I was saying and decided that myself, along with three others, that we were all going to be the main contributors of this new venture. And it's just sort of built up really nicely over the course of the last sort of half a year ish, and we're very close to hitting our next milestone of 600 subscribers if we haven't hit that already. Just like any other fan channel, just reviews, looking at news, the occasional vlog, and discussion stuff. So it's been really good fun to actually have someone to talk to about Bournemouth.
Yeah, a lot of our people on this show, we've said, and a lot of people have spoken to us, and we said it was kind of a godsend getting you through lockdown, and it kind of kept everyone together and almost kept everyone sane.
Without
was that
doubt.
kind of a similar experience for you lot?
Yeah, I think it really was the case. And for me, it was making a whole load of new friends as well, because I'd gained more and more passion for football over the course of the last sort of half a decade, but I've not been in Bournemouth. So I've been following my team without anyone really to be there to chat with. And, watching games during the pandemic was just me sat in my chair, and after 90 minutes had gone by, just standing up and screaming at a wall out of pure frustration. And now I've actually got people to actually sit and have reasonable conversations about it. And it's been, met a load of people, and with the first away game I was able to go to in a year and a half at Nottingham last week, we're able to meet those people in person. So it's been a fantastic social thing for me, despite the difficulty.
It's been a year and a half since you last went to a game. Then Jesus.
Yeah, well, it's in the area. It's if the money's not there as well, it's a bit of a venture going to away games. And I was just wasn't able to go to that many, and certainly haven't been to a home game for a long time because I haven't been in the area. But now the opportunity's there again, and they're all ready for it to get back into the swing of things.
Yeah. Cherries Red Army, I'm sure those are your boys. John's football knowledge and passion for the Cherries and game is a joy to watch. So
That's how you know you've made it, when you not only get invited to speak onto other fan channels, but your groupies also come to watch you and give support.
No, you wouldn't see that from John or John, would you, at all? None of that.
Definitely not.
Bison
I just get slagged off.
Podcast.
Bisons, yeah.
like comments like tosser. He doesn't know what he's on about, that kind of thing. If I ever go guesting.
Well, I mean, I get that, but it's just in the, it's in the WhatsApp group. You wouldn't see that out here. We're thankfully we keep that in house.
You've got another one there. I love listening to John Cherry's talk. Always talks sense. Another one here. Are you paying all these people, John? Is that what's going on here?
I mean, I might have to now, but I did advertise that I would be joining it, and was hoping there'd be a few Bournemouth fans coming on here because they're lovely people and they're always engaged and put in a load of good comments whenever we're putting out videos on live shows. So I think I probably will owe them a couple of beers next time I see them though, after those comments.
Andy M says, does the Seasiders podcast gang have groupies? It's not happened yet, has it? Funnily enough.
We are taking applications though, Put your details in the patron chat, and we'll certainly consider it.
I'm just kind of thinking, would Blackpool groupies be the best in the country or the worst in the country? I'm not really sure.
Well, put it this way. I went uptown on Tuesday after the Coventry game, and I'll just leave it there for the things that I saw. So probably not. Right, let's go with the football then. So, Sean and Connor, I'm going to hand over to you two to grill John about XG, graphs, stats, and all of the things that I don't really understand. So take it away, Sean. Do you want to fire off the Q&A?
Yeah,
Coach Twitch just says, can you play it right back? Anyway, go on.
Oh, yeah.
Just wait, got one.
Desperate now. I was going to say, first of all, rather than going straight into the data stuff and boring everyone to tears, obviously Scott Parker has come into yourselves from Fulham, and it was quite a long chase, wasn't it, for you to get him and then you eventually got him in, and 7 points from 9 games so far. So how are you feeling he's settling in, and what do you think he's sort of brought to the team that perhaps Jonathan Woodgate at the back end of his spell didn't?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that Scott Parker has brought in so far, I think, is probably just a plan, really, because as much as Jonathan Woodgate certainly turned things around to an extent after Jason Tindall's sort of less than stellar spell, it's much less based on the individualism that I think we ended up with under Jonathan Woodgate, and the kind of just, leave it to Danjuma kind of attitude that we quite often had towards the second half of the season. When you've got a player that's easily capable of playing in Europe, performing for your second division side, you're going to want to get in the ball as much as possible. I will give Woodgate credit that he put Billing into number 10 role, which was an inspired move. That's probably a role that he'll continue to see for a decent part of his career now, showing how good he is there. But we're now settling into a sort of a 4-3-3 or 4-1-4-1 type formation, and he's set up a real plan in sort of the pattern of play, very much obviously based on wing play a lot as well, but really helped funneling through the number 6 that we've got in Kilkenny coming through at the moment, trying to actually make something of the possession that we're renowned for having as a Bournemouth side, but also being a very high pressure side. When we were first coming through under Eddie, particularly in the Premier League, we were a very high pressing side, and that completely fell away as we went further and further down the league. Particularly our last season was really not a pleasant defensive display at all, and it wasn't much change under Tindall and Woodgate. But now we're a high energy, high pressing side that wants to take the ball and dominate the game, and we've struggled with that a little bit more because of the injuries that we've got. But one of the biggest positives is all the youngsters coming through. We've got our back line in the last game, the 6 deepest players, so goalkeeper, back 4, and number 6, are all 23 and younger, and have been for this game, the game before, and apart from Adam Smith in our first game, who's 30, it's been a young, very young side, very attacking side, very aggressive side, and loving to see all the youngsters that we know have got talent and haven't had the opportunity to play, by chance, with all the injuries we've got, are really showing what they can do. And it's really, really promising. It's one of the most positive feelings in the fan base at the moment that we've had for probably 3 seasons, I would say. It's not since David Brooks, Ryan Fraser, Callum Wilson, and Josh King were tearing up in the Premiership 3 years ago have we had this kind of positivity in the fan base, I would say.
Yeah, I saw you back end of last season at Burnley in the FA Cup match. I reported on that one, and you looked like you had all the sort of tools there, and you just needed someone to put them all together almost, especially on the attacking front. You could see that David Brooks and players like that were wanting to press with high intensity, and you know that once they get through after intercepting the ball, they're lethal. And you can see from your stats so far that despite the fact you're not particularly creating as many high volume chances as you would probably expect, you're putting them away. You've got 2.63 XG so far this season, but you've scored 6 goals, and it's showing that you've got the quality there that's able to dispatch quite low quality chances, and that's always obviously a benefit at this level. Talking of high quality almost in the side, you're obviously losing Arnaud Danjuma to Villarreal, but you're also bringing in Gary Cahill by the looks of it as well. So what do you make of those 2 transfer pieces of business?
Yeah, I had sort of believed that Arnaud Danjuma was going to be gone at some point this transfer window after his performances in last season. I fully expected him to go to a Premier League side, but hey, if you can go to the Europa League champions, I wouldn't turn that down to try and force my way through to a Premier League side. So he's going there as, I believe, the joint highest signing that Villarreal have ever made for 25 million euros, which is somewhere in the region of up to 21.4 million pounds, I think, which is a nice chunk of money that we're going to need to help bring in reinforcements, whether it be this transfer window or the next one. Bringing in Gary Cahill, I think with the fact that we've got Steve Cook, the club captain, as things stand, yet to return, and a youngster in Zeno Ibsen Rossi, who's really shown himself to be very capable of performing at this level. We have 4 centre backs that most of the club most of the fans are happy with, but with the young age group that we have, I think Scott Parker has decided that just having one more, really experienced name, someone that has performed at the very highest level, to come in and provide some experience for a year, to pass on his knowledge, to play the odd game, I would imagine, but probably not a guaranteed starter, I would say. I can see the logic behind it. I'm not sure that's where we need reinforcements. We could still do with a first choice keeper that's an upgrade on Mark Travers, and the guy Nyland that we just brought in as more of a backup option. We also only have one fit striker at the moment, really, in Dom Solanke. So we definitely need another player there. But it does look like we're bringing in an attacker from Man City on loan. His name escapes me now. I'll have to look that up. But with an option to buy, hopefully another one with possibilities of making it permanent, with Leif Davis having brought in as well with an option to buy. So it's the numbers we need, really. And the selling of Danjuma, will hit us in terms of someone that is quite possibly on his day the best player in this league, with Buendia having gone up. But yeah, it's numbers that we need a little bit more of, I think, particularly with the injury worries that we've had so far this season. And you can't say no to someone with the experience that Gary Cahill has had, and how much he will add to the squad, not just on a match day.
I think there are a couple of parallels. There's the Gary Cahill one, which is a bit unfortunate for us. We've brought in Richard Keogh, a centre-back with seemingly loads of pedigree and experience, and I don't know, 3 games in, it's looking like it'll be, as Bison says, it's looking like it's not going to be the best experience for us, So Gary Cahill v Richard Keogh, battle of the Zimmer frame centre-backs is going to be an interesting watch this weekend, it seems. But we could, in all seriousness, we've touched a couple of times on the importance of Danjuma and just how good a player he is. I know that, at least from cursory listening to the second tier, not the top 20 podcasts, etc., it feels like Jadon Anthony is making a really strong start to this season and really kind of filling those boots. How big a loss do you think Danjuma will be, or do you think you can make up for it with your existing young talent?
So I think Danjuma is a loss, no doubt. When you take, I think it was, what did he end up with? Something like 15 goals and 7 assists. I think I might be slightly off on those stats, but, it's over 20 goal involvements. You take that out of the side, it's going to affect any team. As you yourselves know, losing with your striker on loan last season, not returning. So, you lose that attack power, you're going to suffer in some way. But the advantage that we've got is that we've actually got a player in David Brooks on the right side who can be exactly as good as Danjuma was. And last season, he did struggle with injury, and he was coming back from his second bad injury within the space of 2 years. But now we've got someone who, as long as he doesn't get red carded, is able to have just the same kind of attacking impetus provided on that right-hand side, and a player that can, by the end of the season, could well be up in the running for player of the championship season. So we've got hopefully David Brooks to come in and reinforce in the way that he wasn't able to for the majority of last season. And then, like you said, you've got Jadon Anthony coming in to replace, a more like for like on the left-hand side, who hasn't cost us anything coming through the youth ranks after spending about a decade at Arsenal, and us bringing him through when he wasn't kept on. And he, in his first 3 appearances, has got 2 assists and a goal. He's, a goal involvement per game. He has been vital in the way that we press up front. It's the thing that Danjuma, probably most Bournemouth fans would say that they were most frustrated about Danjuma, is that his defensive work rate wasn't great, which he did improve as the season went on, but was very attack-minded and wasn't great defensively. Whereas Anthony, not only has a good partnership with the left back, another youngster in Jordan Zamora, but his pressing from the front is quite something as well. I mean, against Nottingham Forest last weekend, he had the most tackles of anyone in the pitch with 5 at left wing. So, you know, his pressing is fantastic and his work rate is incredible. So that is just a bonus to the skill that he has and his ability to take on a man. And, you know, if he gets it in the right position, he can certainly put the ball in the back of the net, as he showed on Wednesday.
So, pacey wide men who harass centre-backs with their pressing. I can see it playing out in front of me now.
It's going to be a bloodbath.
So,
Wow.
Obviously, Dave, you mentioned David Brooks and his unfortunate red card against Nottingham Forest. I think that's what you're alluding to. I assume he'll be coming straight back into your lineup, given, you know, all his attributes and talents you mentioned. Are there any other players you feel are going to, you know, any other changes to the lineup you're expecting?
So, yes, I do think David Brooks will come straight back in. We had Leif Davis filling in at right wing against Birmingham, who is a left back / centre back playing at right wing. And I think a few of his teammates were making jokey comparisons to him and Gareth Bale in his movement from one corner of the pitch to the other. He looked very much like a fish out of water at times in that match, but was helpful defensively at the very least. I certainly expect Brooks to come straight back into the lineup. I don't see why not. And for any other changes, the only one that we might see is at right back, because we've had both Adam Smith and Jack Stacey out for the last 2 games, and as such have had no recognised senior right backs available. And Chris Mepham has filled in there and has done a decent job. Was certainly very important, you know, dealing with all the aerial balls that we had to deal with against Birmingham on Wednesday. But it really affects how we're able to attack without a right back. If you look back to our goal in our preseason friendly against Chelsea, that was because Adam Smith bombed underlapped past Brooks. Received the ball near the byline, cut it back, and Marcondes scored from the cross. That's a very big pattern of play for Bournemouth. Is the underlaps of the fullbacks getting on past the wingers, and Mepham has been told not to do that. He sort of drifts back in and acts as a right centre back when we're in possession to sort of make more of a back 3, which has worked, but it's not how Parker wants to play. So if Smith or Stacey is available, you might see one of them come in for, I would imagine, Ibsen Rossi, and Mepham will slot back into right centre back, and we'll get back to a more sort of standard back 4. But there hasn't been any news about their fitness so far, so we may see Brooks being the only change. And apart from that, don't think there'll be much else.
On your last game, it looked like Ben Pearson made quite a good impact off the bench, so I was perhaps thinking potentially he may be another change that you could bring in. But obviously, you're saying that the midfield 3 have settled really well at the start of this season, so I presume that he'll just try and stick with what he's been doing and hope for the best. I think there's more parallels there with the fact we've not got a senior right back. Obviously, we've just apparently forgotten to sign one, whereas you've just got a couple out injured. So that's always positive. We've got a centre back at right back, but he looks to be there quite often and probably too much already for my liking. But I think with ourselves, we've kind of struggled with playing through the thirds. Obviously, with pressure at the back, we've had sort of struggled with the back line that we've been playing. We're hoping for a few changes, but if you would sort of pick the ideal opposition that Bournemouth would then go and exploit, the perfect opposition for you to play against, what sort of attributes of that opposition are you looking to see in order for Bournemouth to make the best of the game?
So our 2 most important avenues of attack that I would love an opposition to not do anything about is firstly is going to be our number 6, Gavin Kilkenny, who's the Irish under-21 that's come through our youth ranks, and with 3 players that can play as a central defensive midfielder out, he's got his chance this season and has started really well. He's got a great range of passing, really nice low centre of balance, very good at keeping hold of the ball, bit vulnerable defensively because he's very slight and not strong enough to really deal with the challenges. But if you let him take a couple of touches on the ball without any pressure, he'll pick it up and ping it to anywhere on the pitch, which is probably going to be either Jadon Anthony hugging the left touchline or David Brooks hugging the right touchline. And he's got that in him to really be able to completely dictate the way that we play. But if he's pressured, he can struggle, which is what happened against Birmingham in midweek. The other thing would be that if we're playing against a team that doesn't have the wingers tracking back to support the fullbacks in defence, Bournemouth over the years have very much relied on wing play to help build up their attacks. And as much as we sort of funnel inwards to Kilkenny now before spreading it out wide to build up the play further, it is the overlapping or underlapping, in this case, fullbacks that really help create the overloads out wide that allow us to pass in between players and create 3-on-2 situations and get it into the box to then create the scoring opportunities. So much as we can't do that really on the right hand side at the moment because we don't really have the fullback that's bombing on, we certainly do on the left. And Jordan Zamora really impressed against our young left back against Birmingham. And him and Anthony have a good relationship down the left hand side because they've been playing together through the youth system for the last couple of years. So yeah, if it's a very low block, then we could struggle a bit more. We haven't really shown too many ways in which we can really break down an opposition unless we're getting them on transition or if they're playing a little bit higher. We haven't created really that much of a wealth of opportunity so far. We've just been very clinical in the ones that we have created. So there's more to come from Parker's system, but there's a definite pattern of play that's being built up at the moment. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that progresses, particularly with any of the new faces that come into the side.
I think the more that you spoke there, the more I think all of us got the fear, really, because I don't think we're one for low blocks particularly. And as much as the defence, the centre-half pairing that we've played at the start of the season would probably suit that a lot more than playing the sort of defensive system that we play, I think we'll continue to try and play a higher line. And really, I think almost our defeat in midweek is almost a blessing in disguise because it's really shown up the frailties of playing that way with the personnel that we've got, and perhaps we'll bring in the changes to make it more of a slightly even contest. But really, realistically, we're miles behind Bournemouth in terms of players that you've got personnel-wise, and obviously the more professional setup in how basically dealing with this division and knowing how to combat this division with the way that you play. A separate sort of point that I wanted to make was, sorry, go on, Connor.
No, and on top of that, you've actually got a right back as well. I don't know, from what you're saying, you're struggling to find right backs. Clearly, Forest is struggling to find right backs, which is why you won't let us have Gabriel.
It always used to be left backs, didn't it? That was always the mythical beast, wasn't it? A left back.
Who has stolen all the Championship right backs? If you bring him back now, we won't say another word about it.
There'll be a right back amnesty bin.
Just drop them off at Bloomfield Road and they'll all be forgotten about.
Any at this point. Literally anyone at this point. Anyone that can run. Yeah, I was going to ask about our tickets that came through have 3 pricing categories. They have normal view, they have restricted view, and they have very restricted view. Do you have any idea what a very restricted view is?
Will we just be outside the stadium listening to the cheers?
Yeah. You'll be climbing the trees outside and be looking out over the match. I'm not sure actually, because we, in our home ground, there's no. It's not like Everton. There's not massive poles in the way to prevent you from actually seeing like an entire half of the pitch. I can imagine if you are right at the back, then there might be the roof just about getting in your vision, but I can't imagine there's any way that you could be very restricted in your view in the stadium. It's not a big stadium, and it's one block. There's words I'm trying to say. It's not like there's a high tier and a lower tier. There's a section set of stairs to get to. So I'm really confused about that. I've not. I'm not entirely sure.
It's probably for the best, to be honest. Come the hour mark, I think at this point, really, if we're 3-0 down, I think everyone will be clambering for that restricted view.
They're actually charging you more for the very restricted view as an away fan.
Depends which team is coming down. That's the thing.
John, I've just got one quick one that's just popped into my view. I was doing a bit of research on Wiki, and what I'm looking at here is your transfer section. Now I'm looking at transfer fees paid out by Bournemouth. Jefferson Lerma 25 million, Nathan Ake, so 20 million, Solanke 19, Billing 15 million. There's another 15, another 13. Record fees received 41 million for Ake, 21 for Dan Juma, 20 million for Mings, 20 million for Callum Wilson, 18 million for Aaron Ramsdale, etc. Now, isn't that a bit weird for you? And in the kind of nicest possible way. Did you ever envisage those sort of fees being bandied around, being a Bournemouth fan, given where you've been and looking at administration and almost worse, not that long ago?
Yeah, just over a decade ago, when it was at its practically at its worst. I mean, God, I remember, when I was starting to really follow the team quite a lot more was when we got promoted from League Two under a transfer embargo, and we had a pretty good go of things in League One the following season when we lost Brett Pittman to Bristol City at the start of that season. We had Danny Ings coming in as our next striker off the conveyor belt of youth that Bournemouth sort of relied on. And after having a good season and with Bournemouth, Eddie Howe took him from us when he went to Burnley. And apparently it was a 1 million transfer fee. And that blew my mind at the time, the fact that we were going to get 7 figures for a player. And obviously Danny Ings himself has gone on to be way more successful than I think anyone in Bournemouth ever thought he would be. But to then move our way up the pyramid, and when we moved into the Premier League, it was what we were paying 7 million for Max Gradle to bring him back, 8 million for Tyrone Mings, 3.5 million for Lee Tomlin, which was a bit of a waste of money, but we were throwing millions around to get players, and I was Callum Wilson in our championship season that we paid 2.5 million for, I think, when we got 3 million for Graben.
You got 20 in for him. 20
exactly.
Business, wasn't it?
It was amazing. And Nathan Ake, was a player when we were in first season. We got him on loan. Then Chelsea took him back for the second half of the season. Then we bought him for 20 million, and it was the best 20 million we ever spent. Stayed with us for another 4 years before going down and getting 41 for him from City. And it's a shame he looks the shadow of the player that he was at Bournemouth. But these kind of figures that are banded around, and even now we're getting more with Sheffield United selling Ramsdale on. We'll get 15% of that, from what I hear. Sam Surridge got sold for 2.5 million, possibly up to 5, depending on how well he does. Yeah, all these millions that are banded about, and it's I think a lot of Bournemouth fans are kind of desensitized to it now, in a way, particularly a lot of the newer fans and the younger fans who don't necessarily know, when we were scraping.
Yeah, that's kind of just normal transfer fees for the ones who've not been there in the past.
Yeah, I mean, stories of us being minutes away from being liquidated. When our chairman Jeff Mostyn was putting his hand in his pocket to pay the administrator, and when we bought Mark Pugh from Hereford. We bought him for £100,000, and the chairman was desperate not to pay that much money because it was just they didn't have that much to scrape together, and £4,000 for Harry Arter from Woking. Those are the kind of figures that Bournemouth have paid for most of their players in history, and had to rely on youth products. So now to be banning about 8 figures. It's after 5 seasons of the Premier League, it's difficult. Sometimes you get lost in the progress of the team, but it's something special now.
I mean, from an outsider looking in, I know we've obviously been in the Premier League for a season. We were a higher league team in the 60s, 70s, and previous to that. But I think our record signing, chaps, is about 1.5. Was it 1.3 million for DJ Campbell?
Yeah,
about that.
I think that's so. Just to put it into context,
Yeah.
our record fee paid is 1.3 million. I think what's the most we've ever received? Was it still Ormerod?
Charlie,
sorry,
7
yeah.
mil. 7,
Yeah.
I think.
That was
paid for him.
That was blowing our mind getting a figure like that in 7 million. And you look at 7 million now, don't you? When you're looking at Premier League transfers, and it's a pittance, isn't it?
Get your bag of crisps.
Yeah.
Compared
to a Grealish.
change. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Crazy.
You've got your groupies coming in from Germany now, John. Like, if your away supporters anything like this, come February, you're going to have difficulty.
Yeah, I mean, we got a few people that have been popping up on Twitter in terms of like, there's the American Cherry, there's an AFC Bournemouth South Africa Twitter user, there's AFC Bournemouth Germany, there's a young lad that comes on to the back of the net free for alls quite often, who's from Latvia. We've got quite a famous Bournemouth supporter that's in Italy called Filippo, who's a lovely guy. Who comes onto the free for alls when he can as well. We've got the odd man sort of stuffed all over the world from our time in the Premier League and from the first few years of break football. I think we earned a lot of neutral fans over, and that's still there. We've certainly got our following is certainly reduced since getting relegated in terms of we've got a lot of the casual sort of forgot about us, but the hardcore fan base is still very much there, and it's just amazing to see fans from all over the world just tuning in.
Yeah. Okay, right. Let's move on to our little feature we called "They Played for Both." Now, thinking caps on viewers, get in the chat players who've played for both around the room. Let's try and think of any. The first one I'm going to throw at you is Paul Groves, possibly before your time, but I believe he was your manager, and he was a stalwart midfielder for Blackpool, and was he the assistant manager?
He was the manager.
Manager.
For a brief period. He was the youth team manager for a bit, and then got the chance to become the main man when Lee Bradbury was let go of, and he was not very successful. One of the worst games of football I ever saw was Bournemouth against Hartlepool when he was manager. And that was horrendous. And he ended up leaving us in 21st in League One, which was the season Eddie Howe came back and we got promoted that same season. Turned it around completely. But yeah, he's not remembered very fondly from Bournemouth.
Now there's another one who's quite contentious with the Blackpool fan base. He never played for us, but Brett Pittman very nearly did. Does anyone remember that saga? Sean, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, I'm literally just reading that now. Yeah, it was a Carlisle Classic, wasn't it? I think with the fees, we opening bid, we put in 400 grand, and then Bournemouth blocked it, and then we thought we were going to have opening talks, and then we didn't, and then it sort of ummed and ahed, and then I think we sort of, as we did, sort of gave up quite easily on actually paying finances for a football player that has to play football. It's strange.
Wasn't the story he was on the way to sign? He was on the M6 on the way to sign, and who came in for him?
He was having a medical and what have you, and then Holloway literally came out and said that he was having a medical, and then a day later, it all fell apart. He went to Bristol City, didn't he, for a Mill?
City, that's right. Yeah. Ted Mcdougall, is that one for those of a certain vintage? I think there.
Yes, Ted Mcdougall, rather famous amongst Bournemouth supporters. I didn't realise he played for Blackpool as well. I think he played for United as well. United, but he scored. I think it was 9 goals in an FA Cup game against Margate in a 10-1 victory. Good few decades ago. Our South Stand, which is still temporary, but I think our South Stand is named after him. It's Ted Mcdougall Stand, and he was an incredible goal scorer of his time. But that was good. It was a few decades back.
This is a good one from AFC Bournemouth, Germany. Klaus Beck, Jorgensen. He's a popular player at Blackpool. Didn't know he played for Bournemouth as well.
Liam
Dan
Feeney
Gosling.
played for Bournemouth. Liam Feeney played for Bournemouth as well, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Liam Feeney, very popular for when he was playing with us in League Two
Did he?
and League One. Lovely, tricky winger. Scored a couple of great goals for us as well. And Dan Gosling is, I'm disappointed I didn't remember Dan Gosling. Was he just on loan with you for a season?
Yep.
I think he was one of the ones where we brought in about 19 loanees and they all left in January, and then it all sort of fell apart. Brian Alsop as well, I'm pretty sure, came in for a little spell.
Simon Gillette, yes. Yeah, I remember him, yeah. Any more? Ian Hart, that crappy left back.
Played 4 games for us, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. He ended up. I think he retired after he left us. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, he was with us for a season. He was with us for our championship winning season. He didn't play a lot of games, but yeah, he's remembered pretty fondly from Bournemouth fans.
He went to Levante, didn't he, for a bit? So then I'm sure I thought he was the one that went to Levante. Yeah.
I think it was after his Leeds time.
Yeah.
Right, that was they played for both. Let's just move on to score predictions, and we'll let John go. We've had you for over 40 minutes. We're supposed to be half an hour, so let's move on to score predictions. Let's open up with you, Sean. What's your gut feel for the trip down to Dean Court?
Can we have a with Keogh, without Keogh score prediction?
Go on then. Yeah, you can.
If we play the same back line, I'm going 4-0. If we play a different back line, I'm going 2-0. 2-1? No, 3-1. We'll say we score 3-1. 3-1.
I don't think we're going to score either. I think with or without Keogh, it's going to be 3-0. So I'm not positive at all. Connor, over to you.
I think you're both a bunch of negative Nancys. I think
look at Bison's.
I mean, but we know Bison's is a negative Nancy. There's nothing new there. I think it's going to be 1-0 to us. Bournemouth build up quite slowly. I think they've struggled to create so far, including what I think is against what is including a very poor Nottingham Forest side. And I feel like with the quality of chances we're creating as Blackpool, we're overdue a goal.
Go on, Connor. That's what we like to see. I didn't want to put my neck out because I know I'd get a load of grief if I thought we win. But yeah, I'm with you on the stats side of things, definitely. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I think that's it then, John. So we're going to move on to Blackpool v Coventry, a bit of a review now. So we'll let you head off. Just to say thanks a lot for coming on, mate. Been really insightful, and hopefully Blackpool give a good account of ourselves and it's a reasonable game.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I hope so. And I'm looking forward to it regardless, as I would be on any weekend. But yeah, best of luck to you for the season, and good luck in staying up this season.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed for you.
Okay. Right, thanks a lot, John. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Cheers, John.
Cheers.
And thanks for your army of keyboard warriors as well.
Can we borrow some for our next away performance on a stream?
Can any of them play right back?
If my knees hadn't given out already, then maybe I could have helped you, but unfortunately not. Right. Cheers, guys.
Right, cheers, mate. Thanks a lot, mate. Ta-da. Good bants, Connor. Good bants.
Bournemouth was the game where Paul Ince kicked a bottle at a spectator and throttled an official in the tunnel, and then we brought out the Ince max the game after.
That's what it was. It was.
Yeah.
Was that the Gazette or the club that was it? The Gazette or the club that the Gazette?
Yeah.
Did we win that game? I think we did. Was it 2-1?
The game after, or the Bournemouth game we won?
Bournemouth game.
It kind of all fell apart after that, didn't it?
Yeah.
For sure. Because we were live on TV when we were going to go top of the league, and then we collapsed. But yeah,
5 in a row we won.
That doesn't sound like us.
Right, let's move on to Tuesday night. Sean, you and Tom did a Twitter Spaces call.
It's very
Which
therapeutic.
I was going to join, but we're in the home field and it was far too loud to be heard, and it hasn't been recorded. So let's just kind of revisit that ever so quickly before we go.
Do we have to?
We do.
Look, I'm. The more I think about it, the more positive I am about it in the end. Because
Go on then, tell us your thought process. Come out with that
so I'll go a bit at XG first. Let everyone settle down with a bit of XG. Get us in the mood. We're the
we'll go a bit
highest.
XG. I like that.
Yeah, we have the 6th highest XG in terms of open play this season so far. So we're creating an abundance of chances, and it's not from corners.
Blackpool
kicks.
FC are creating abundance of chances. The team that we've been watching.
We had, I think, 1.87 XG against Coventry, and they had 2.01, I think it was, with info goal. And I just think, sorry, go on, Connor.
Yeah, just like to translate that into moves, there are so many times, particularly against Coventry, where we hit the bylines, Josh Bowler, stormed forward. And then we had loads of cutbacks after cutbacks, which always create or are the most likely to create best quality chances. And the issue is you just got CJ Hamilton doing the name a disservice and skying them. The chances are there. We're just...
Do you think if they'd have fallen to an on-form Jerry Yates, perhaps?
I wouldn't even say Jerry Yates. I would make the point now that people have made that I think Sully Kaikai would have made more of an impact so far than CJ Hamilton would have, because he's cleverer with his positional sense and he has more to offer off the ball. And I think he's just a smarter player than CJ Hamilton. CJ Hamilton's quite one-dimensional with his play, and I don't think he has the physicality. You look at Bowley, look how well-built Bowler is and how he sort of just can glide through players. CJ Hamilton was essentially the League One version of that, and I can't see him stepping up. And I think if like at the end of the day, that chance at the end where CJ Hamilton skies it, Kaikai's buried that a few times for us. So Kaikai would have scored that. That doesn't mean we should have signed Kaikai. I'm just saying he would have probably suited the squad better than CJ Hamilton would, I think, in this division so far.
CJ is a great player. He's very fast, but I'm not sure he has the same level of tricks in his book, to compete with the Championship. Critchley brought him on Tuesday, and then within 5 minutes they'd completely neutralised him by bringing on a slightly faster player.
Yeah, very much.
That's going to be a lot of players faster than CJ probably in the Championship, so he's going to need to round out some of the more tricky parts of his game. I think if he's going to have the impact we want him to have, and we're bringing him on in the 70th minute.
But he's never been he's never needed to be a streetwise player. Yeah, he's never needed to be streetwise because in League One, as long as we had a good, sort of won the ball back on transition, we'd have the space in behind for CJ Hamilton to run onto, and it's just not going to happen with the sort of step up in class, the quality of opposition we're playing. We're not going to have that abundance of space that you would have. You have to create your own space, and I don't think CJ Hamilton creates his own space. I think he just sort of, we create the space by winning the ball back on transition, and that's not going to happen because Championship defences are a lot smarter in the way that they defend after losing the ball in transition than League One teams are.
So let's move on to the penalty incident, the air quotes penalty incident. I was busy queuing up for a beer at the time, so I didn't actually see it in the flesh. I did a Smith, but my nephew came out. He was fuming, effing and blinding, 15-year-old, and he was like, "It's worse than that Maradona chance." Now, if you watch it at normal speed, I watched it from a certain angle on the replay, I was like, definite pen. But then you watch it kind of at a different angle, slow down. It kind of looks like it's just hit the side of his face. So
it's that freeze frame, isn't it? It's the freeze frame where the ball's hit his head, but his hand's there, and you're like, how can the ball? It's like almost spot. If you put the ball about 2 yards later after that's happened, you would expect it to be going in a completely different direction to where the ball's ended up, and that's where you're thinking perhaps he's headed it onto his hand and the hand's changed direction of the ball. But I still don't bloody know. I genuinely don't. So that's why I understand why it's obviously been given.
Coach Critch is making a great comment there, and I think Isaac, one of the new writers for UTMP, has made it today as well. He was offside. He was about a yard offside. When you freeze when the ball was played, He's quite clearly above from everyone. For me, that handball incident you can debate until the end of time. I think the offside is a much stronger claim or shout there. And that's the one Critchley actually chose to
He did, yeah.
put his neck out to in the post-match interview. Critchley didn't mention handball, he mentioned offside.
It's unlike him as
really?
well to bring that up. It's unlike him to be bringing that up post-match unless he's definitely clearly seen an angle that sort of backs up his point. He very rarely sort of goes at officials in his... He does it on the touchline, but he doesn't do it at post-match that I've heard.
What I want is a bring your own VAR. Can we just like have a camera in the stands linked to an iPad that Critch can just run up to the fourth official and show? You know, that's what we might be needing now.
I wonder what would happen if that
Oxford
actually
a bit
came
naughty
about.
there, isn't he?
Would they change it?
Championship needs VAR with a wink.
Yeah, but
so he's onside.
I was going to say, like, past the goal, like the first 30 minutes of that game was hard to watch, like really hard to watch. Especially when you come in and pick like Coventry, you can see they're a really well-drilled side. They've got some really good players. Like Gustavo Hamer, I thought was brilliant in centre mid. Callum O'Hare, obviously a really good player in the 10. And you were kind of there like, oh, so this is where we are now. This isn't much fun. Should we just like pop back down to League One and crack on? Like looking like we're actually, you know, a functioning attacking unit. But we're in a halfway house of playing a high line in defence like we did last season, but then dropping deep because we don't trust ourselves to recover. And the 2 yellow cards in the game from Connolly and Husband were both because Keogh pressed high up, playing the way we want to play, got turned in behind, and then they're out of position because they're expecting him to win the ball back on transition. And then they can break forward. And then after that happened, Keogh's then dropping 5 yards. Husband's then dropping deeper than Keogh because he doesn't trust Keogh to win the ball back on transition. The minute you can't trust yourselves to play a high line, the whole system's bollocks because you have to have full faith in your ability to be able to do that. And the fact that we don't at the moment with the personnel tells me that you either change the personnel or you have to just change the system and contain in defence.
And I think, to be fair about the refereeing decisions, in the ground, from my view in the West Stand, I was almost convinced that James' Husband challenge happened inside the box. And I thought we were quite lucky to not have a pen put against us there. You know, I think equally there'll be some Cov fans coming away from their game feeling like they should have had more decisions like that. And equally, there was a time when Keogh got beat. He tripped up over himself, and the ref gave it as our free kick when they were through on goal. And I was like, he got so lucky there.
Do you know what? I do admire Keogh in a way of his confidence after he literally made about 19 errors and then he just tried to like glide out into midfield with possession into literally nowhere, into a literal abundance of 3 men in traffic where he knew he would have to just turn around and he fell on the ball again and then lost it in transition. I was just like, oh my God.
He reminds me of like a shit Shrokdan Mustafi. You know, he's got loads of confidence, but whenever anything goes wrong, he like stands up and he goes and like, you know, gestures as if somebody else should be saving himself.
Connor, you look like that. You look like that still of him that's going round in his kit. You know, the one that's been turned into memes. Then
I just think it's not his. I can't even blame him because you can't blame him because we're asking him to play a style of football that he cannot do, and it's like you don't. Why would you bring in it's so dysfunctional to every other transfer we've made under Critchley. It's so bizarre. And it's like, what was the idea? I struggle to find what the idea is. So I'll bring an example. Like Celtic brought in Colo Torre under Brendan Rodgers, first signing he made. And the first 6 games, he was basically there to sort of marshal people into the style of play that Rodgers wanted to do. And then he never played again. It's like we brought in Richard Keogh to do a similar job, but he can't do the style of play. So it's like he's teaching people and he's the experienced head. But if he's the experienced head and he's showing everyone what not to do, then what's the point? I don't get it. I really I'm really struggling to see what Marvin Ekpiteta has to do to get a start because as much as Marvin Ekpiteta works better with a Gretterson or a Ballard beside him, you can't be that bad in centre half and continue to keep your place. If he plays again, we must have had an absolute shambles at the back in the game after Keogh for him to even be considered for another place again. Because for me, that was the single worst centre-half performance I have seen in my lifetime. The amount, just general, this guy is so far out of his depth. I saw Tyler Blackett play a European match at centre-half. I saw Anthony Ralston play against Neymar. I've seen, we saw so many. Jeffrey Rentmeister at Shrewsbury away. You've seen these performances happen, and they've never played again. But Keogh mustn't be on nothing. He must be on a decent wage. And I feel like I'm just going at Keogh now, and I want to stop because, at the end of the day, he seems like a nice guy, and he's had a decent career, and it's not his fault that we've signed him. But I just don't get it. It's so bizarre. It's like someone in the board has just gone, "Here's my pal Richard Keogh. We need to play this guy." Because it's so out of kilter with what Neil Critchley or anyone in that recruitment team has done since they've arrived. End of rant. Sorry.
So, how, Sean, as you mentioned, as you were talking about previous to that, you're saying we've either got to change up the personnel or we've got to change up the system. So let's try and do that, and let's pick our team that's going to beat Bournemouth on Saturday via our squad picker. So, firstly, formation. Sean, what you having?
I would drop a striker against Bournemouth. I wouldn't do that going forward because I think we've created an abundance of chances, and that's why I was struggling with this. Whether we do just stick with it because of the amount of chances we're creating, and just kind of hope that we turn it into a ding-dong game of 3-2, and it clicks up front, and we do that. But I feel like we've lost the battle in the first half. We've started games very slowly, especially, and we've not really got to grips in central midfield. And I think perhaps dropping Anderson into his central role, because I don't see who we play on the left either, and I don't like Anderson on the left. So I would put Anderson in the 10. 4-2-3-1. 4-2-3-1.
Is this on here? Is it an option? 4-2-3. Yes, there it is. 4-2-3-1.
I have a sneaking suspicion Connor might go 4-4-2 and I understand why, because of the chance creation things. But
well, this is a debate between the three of us, which we're having one team. Connor, give me your thoughts on the formation.
If you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, I'd have been like, why are we not doing 4-4-2? What are you doing, etc. But, I think Lavery has shown me enough to suggest that I would be comfortable seeing Lavery come in from the left, in the same way, Bowler comes in from the right with Yates up top. I don't think you get the best out of Lavery in a two-striker formation because neither Yates or Lavery really have the kind of size to do the one knocks it down to the other. He seems to be playing these big long balls, and then none of our forwards are really tall enough to make the most of them. So I won't contend the 4-2-3-1 too much. I think if this was the lineup or the formation unveiled on Saturday, I'd be willing to stick by it and see what happens. So I figure I should give Sean at least the same courtesy on this pod.
I was going to say as well, there's a few people going for 3 at the back, and I would long-term go for 3 at the back, but I don't think it would be fair on Bowler to play him at right wing back, because that's essentially what you're doing there. And I think that if you want to get the best out of him, he's literally got the second highest expected assists in the division so far from open play per 90. So if you look at what he does, he likes to have that just purely attacking responsibility, as much as he's obviously pressing higher up the park. And that's where we're going to get, if we're going to have any chance, it's going to be winning the ball back high up the park and dispossessing the centre halves by putting pressure onto them. So I think giving Bowler the defensive responsibility on top of that limits what he can do. So I think that putting them in a back three would be quite unfair, I think, on the attacking players.
Okay, so let's address the back four then, Sean. As you said, what's Big Marv got to do to get a start? I think I have put him in our pick of team over the last 3 games. So surely Critch is going to stick him in there, given the form Keogh's been showing in the last few games. Or do you think he will? Bearing in mind, this is our team that we want to pick here. We're not trying to second guess Critchley.
Yeah. So I think that Keogh, you could see the glimpses of what was going to happen against Coventry in the prior 2 games, but he was okay. He put in like 6 out of 10 or what have you. But the fundamentally basic things that he did wrong that are completely in contrast with the way we want to play tells me that Critchley can't possibly play him in this game, because if you're going to have any chance, you have to have players fit in the way we want to play. So I would put Ekpiteta in, like you say, and I would put Casey next to him, and I'd put Husband at left back.
I was going to say Oliver Casey. I've not seen him play yet, but
I've seen him. I've seen him, but it's a case of we don't know what he's going to be like, but we know what Husband and Keogh have been like. So it's kind of like, why not? It's a free hit against Bournemouth at the end of the day. If we go and lose 3-0, everyone's expecting it anyway. So if you're going to start trialing different players, this is probably the game to do it in. And
unlike Cardiff, for example, Bournemouth don't create a lot from set pieces. The quality of their chances from set pieces is one of the lowest in the league. So we don't need size and, kind of people who can get ahead on it, in the same way that we would have done, say, against Cardiff. We can have the luxury of maybe slightly smaller ball-playing defenders like Casey.
So, the problem right back position, is it Connolly nailed in there, is he?
Unless you fancy a go, John, I think it has to be.
Well, I ran 2 kilometres on my run the other day, so my fitness levels are getting up there. Did it in 25 minutes. Been striking a ball on Stanley Park, teaching my nephew how to jump through a ball. So maybe, yeah. In fact, yeah, I'll do it. But it's a game in midfield, Sean.
I mean, to be fair, as much as I think that we need to press higher and have a ball winner, I don't think I've got the physical specimen, to be honest, to be able to challenge them. Give it a go. Blowing out my ass. I was going to say we played one charity Blackpool supporters match about a year and a half ago, and I lasted about 15 minutes and started running the fucking line. So, every
I played in a kind of a supporters 11. The last time I played an 11-a-side game, and it was like 4 years ago.
I'm pretty sure was it Pullfoot? I'm pretty sure I played in that, but we just didn't know each other then.
Oh, did you play? Did you?
It
ruined me, that game. It took me like about 2-3 weeks to recover, and I'm not joking.
It was horrendous.
Anyway, people haven't come on here to listen to how unfit I am. Midfield, Kenny Dougal has been a bit of an enigma since he's come back. Unfit.
I would say Dougal and Ward. I think I've got question marks about Ward in terms of playing. I think obviously, well, not question marks, but I don't think he's at the level that Dougal and Stewart are, because you could see that when he played with James, and it was just that if he has to put in any defensive responsibility, he gets a bit lost in the game. And you could see when Dougal came on, he was winning. When Dougal would play the ball through, Grant Ward would sort of face himself but to the back of the midfielder at Coventry and turn them, and then have a space in behind the midfield. So if he's able to do that against Bournemouth, then it sort of opens up opportunities for us. So Ward is obviously a very good player next to Dougal, but I'm wondering if perhaps, obviously, as we say, if Stewart's fit, I'd just throw him in. And I think that Dougal and Stewart are well, it seems like he's been doing. Yeah, sorry. It seems like he's been doing. There was a video on Tangerine TV, and it seems like he's basically up to full training, really. And obviously, Critchley basically said he was too soon for Saturday last week. So then he's not been in Tuesday either. So you'd think that he's probably just been saved for this one. So hopefully, if we can play Dougal and Stewart, you have to play them. They're the only two midfielders that are able to play at this level for me together as a partnership if we're going to actually get any form of control over the midfield.
I don't think it's a disaster. I completely agree that it needs to be Dougal and Stewart. Dougal is spelled with 2 L's. But if we don't have Stewart fit, I don't think it's a complete disaster.
Are you playing a 3/4 fit Stewart over Ward then?
I don't know.
No, I don't think I would.
Ward's very good at carrying the ball, and if we're trying to play on the break in space, as I think a couple in the chat has suggested we do, I think Ward can do that. He can carry the ball up, progress the ball up quickly, etc. if we need to. I would not be gutted if Ward started in the same way I would be if other Blackpool players started this match.
Yeah.
I wonder who. I wonder who you're referring to.
You know he's playing CDM. You know he's doing that, don't you? He's going to even play higher forward because he can be a ball player then.
Right, chaps. Who we having here then? Someone make a call.
Ward, because I don't think Stewart's going to be 100%. So, and at the end of the day, if we're still, say we are 0-0 or we're 1-0 up somehow in the game, having someone like Stewart to come on and calm things down in midfield if they're getting a bit wayward with 30 minutes to go, or just generally getting hold of the central midfield areas when we're sort of under a siege of attack, then it works really well for us. So yeah, I think Ward starts.
Okay. Just avert your eyes to this comment. Teddy Howe is the secret weapon on Saturday. We've got a right back. We forgot. We've got one.
Gosh.
In he goes.
In he goes. The young lad as well. The young lad looked good at Southport, so that's it. He's Ballon d'Or winner in about 4 years. That Jack Moore guy. So get him in.
He was another odd signing, wasn't he, Teddy Howe? He had a good game against. Played for Reading, didn't he? Had a good game.
Racing spectacular, that was.
It was another Adi Youssef style signing, wasn't it? Right, onto the... So have we picked those front three? Bowler on the right, Lavery on the left, Keshi in the middle?
Yeah, you were saying Lavery on the left, weren't you? Yeah, Keshi has to play the 10, but I don't know if Connor can go on about the left-hand side with Lavery.
Well, I don't know. It kind of feels to me like our options on the left-hand side, because Mitchell isn't fit yet, they're either CJ Hamilton, who I'm not super impressed with, and I don't think has been super impressive. You know, he's just been fairly nondescript whenever I've seen him on the pitch. Yeah. Or you're maybe playing Garbutt in a much higher position, which again, I
was my shout, I think.
Yeah, which I don't think is the wrong choice, but I'd be really interested to see how does Lavery...
Are we dropping Garbutt then?
I think we'd be quite fluid if we played Lavery on the left with Keshi, because the whole point of Keshi's game that works is when he interchanges with people in positions. If we're quite fluid in that three with Lavery, Keshi, and Bowler, then they're not going to be easily marked. They're going to be able to put pressure on the back line. So I think it's like I say, if it's any time that you want to experiment, it's in a game where you're expected to lose like this, because if we pick any positives out of this game, then we've done well. So yeah, I'd agree with that.
And are we in agreement then? Forward where he needs to get on the ball and head stuff. He's a forward that runs at people. So I think if you can put him in a position where he's breaking into space and running at people and doing that interchange, like Sean said, that's fine. If he wants to be kind of like this inside forward role cutting in, I'd be interested to see how it goes. And if it doesn't work, we can revert back to a 4-4-2. Put Keshi out loud, put Keshi out wide again, and go back to what worked. But I'd be interested to see if this works for the first 45 minutes or so.
Yeah. Are we in agreement then that Husband's a better option at left back than
in a
Garbutt?
In a four, yeah, I think if you're playing a back three, you've got a left wing back, then Garbutt's your man. But I think just he's in a bad run of form, and I think he gets frustrated when he's not able to have that attacking output all times. When you think of when Garbutt's won tackles, the higher up the park than where he's kind of naturally been in these opening stages of the game, he tends to win the ball about where the halfway line is. He's never really been one that sort of fronts up the winger as he's about to put the ball into the box. So that's never been his game. And Husband, as Josh says, has not been great at all. But I think if they're going to play 4-3-3. They've got two wingers that are going to probably be pinned out wide the entire game. If you're asking who's the better player to deal with a cross, it's going to be James Husband over Garbutt, I think. So I think that's why I'd probably put him in over Garbutt.
Okay. So I think we're in agreement with Bowler, aren't we, on the right?
Yeah.
Ezra up top.
Keo. Holds the ball in. We need that target.
Such a high line. We should put him at number 9.
Yeah, exactly. That's where he really wants to be. That's where he's been trying to run this entire time. That's why he keeps getting caught out.
Right, so there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That's the team that's going to beat Bournemouth. Maxwell Connolly, Casey, Marv, husband, Dougal and Ward in front of them, Keshi linking it all together, Ivory on the left, Ball on the right, and Jerry knocking in all these chances they're going to create for him. Happy days, 3-0.
It's all right. We'll play Matty Longstaff off the bench, who's been linked today from Newcastle as well. That'd be a nice.
Oh, is that Sean Longstaff's brother?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so he's just about to sign a new contract with Newcastle, and he's linked with the SPFL, which I presume would be perhaps Rangers or Aberdeen, Notts Forest, and ourselves. So if we could beat any of those teams to a football player that exists and does things with their feet, that would be fantastic. Because so far, I don't think we've really batted anyone off for a signing that isn't in our league, which is fair enough because we've just been promoted. But it'd be nice to get one where you really think, wow, we've really beaten people off for this signing.
It's when we're losing right backs to Sunderland, and Sunderland, our targets are going for medicals at Sunderland, and it's like they're a League One side now. Like, I know they're a big club, but we are in a better division than them. Why aren't you choosing us?
It seems like I don't know what. We just seem like we're a step behind. We used to be so proactive. I feel like we've been reactive in the transfer market this window, whereas we've been quite proactive before then. And I don't know what Tommy Johnson's departure has to do with any of it, or what position he even held. I'm not entirely sure of the makings up of how we did things, but it just seems like we've focused in on targets for too long that realistically we probably would have had to dish out a lot of money for. And if we weren't willing to pay that money that they were wanting in the first place, we kind of should have moved on a bit quicker. But as I've said previously in another podcast, Critchley is one of those managers, like Klopp, like Bielsa, that will not compromise on the type of player he wants. And it'll only come down to the last minute where he may panic and go, we need a right back, just anyone now. But we could have, at the end of the day, we could have replaced Turton if we wanted to already, but we're not wanting a Turton. That was why we've let Turton go and not really made much of a fuss of it, because it's a specific type of right wing back we want, and he's not going to compromise on what he wants. But how much we're paying out for players, how much our budget is, etc., I don't know, and I don't know what level we're trying to compete at in transfer wise. But it seems like we're on a high League One level rather than a low Championship level.
Right, Simon, if you're listening to this, can you please go to the right back amnesty bin that we're going to leave outside the Armfield Club? People can just chuck them in there. Nothing will be said. No blowback. So just go and pick one out of there. In fact, get the best one out of there, and we'll say no more. Right, we're on an hour and 10, gentlemen, so I think we'll leave it there. We're coming onto the reaction show after the game. We'll announce it on the socials when we're going to be doing that show. I think a load of us won't be there and pissed, so probably on Saturday night, but do stay tuned. Right, thanks for coming on, Connor. Great input as ever.
Cheers, lads.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, no worries.
It's getting louder and louder. Well, let's be said, he's up the pool. Up the pool. Just want to say, everybody, thanks for joining us this evening. Do like the video and subscribe to it if you're watching this on YouTube. Tell your pals we're nearly at 1,000, so get that button pressed, and we'll speak to you on the next show, Max Reaction show after the Bournemouth game. Cheers.